In this video, we're going to look at how to debug a SCORM package using SCORM Cloud. You can actually do this using your own LMS. I'm just using SCORM Cloud because it's nice and easy and it saves me cluttering up my production LMS with additional content. So I have a course here that I'm going to publish. The course has not actually got much content in it, but it's got a structure, and this is what I want to show you. So I've got under CSR training, I've got a course, which is basically a book with slides and then subbooks. And then I've got a simulation and I've got a PDF just dropped into there. So all of those things are underneath CSR training, the book, the simulation, and the loose PDF. Now the book is actually comprised of, I've got under the commit order process, which is my book, I've got 1, 2, 3 slides and then 2 subbooks. The first subbook, called Overview, is for the first part of this course, and that's just got 1 slide in it. And then section 1 has 4 slides in it. Okay, and that all comprises of this commit order process course. The simulation is outside of that because I want to show you some separate things, and then this last PDF. So I'm going to SCORM all of that from CSR training down to make sure we get all of those components in there. And then we'll look at how that's being tracked by the LMS and how completion is reported back, because that's the complaint I hear most often. It's not flagging me as complete when I know I've completed this course. Now, before I do that, I'm going to go to my resources and specifically under Playback settings. Now, I've got a separate Playback settings adaptable resource that I use specifically for SCORM packages. This is because my regular Playback settings, I have the tracking set to manager, so it tracks everything in manager. This one has been configured specifically to support SCORM, and that has the SCORM as the tracking in there. So if I open that one and look at it, Playback settings for SCORM 1.2 and 2004, and look under Trainer Global, here's the ones that I'm interested in. There's actually 3 categories of tracking that it has in here. I've got tracking general, tracking SCORM, and tracking AICC. AICC we don't care about here. Tracking SCORM I do. Here I want to say I want to track their progress and their final result, which is going to be based on their score, which is going to be a percentage complete for a book. If it's test mode, then it's going to be the score coming out of that. But this is kind of the key one, results and progress based on score percentage. Now, that's all well and good. But over and above that, I need to go into tracking general here. This is for my debugging. And here you can see I've got tracking backend SCORM, which means it's going to pass my results to the LMS. And I've got debug mode here, which I'm going to set on. That's going to allow us to see the detailed communications between the SCORM package in the browser and the LMS. And that's really important if you want to be checking what's going wrong. So I've got that here. Click apply, click OK, and now I'm going to generate this particular course. So all the way down to here, my CSR training. And I'm going to publish this as a SCORM package. So I'll right click, publish selected object. In here, make sure I've got a type of SCORM. Playback settings, this is the Playback settings resource that I was just looking at, which is Playback settings for SCORM in 2004. And then further down in here, I've got the version of SCORM that I'm using. Most of the rest is set and forget, don't need to worry about that. I just need to say where I want to put this, which is going to be on my E drive in a zip called CSR training. It's always going to put it in a zip. The zip's what you load into the LMS. So I will just publish this out. It's going to be fast because I don't have much content, and it's done. Okay, so that is now in my E drive. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my LMS, or in my case, SCORM Cloud. Now, SCORM Cloud is effectively a free browser-based system that you can use for loading courses into and testing them out. You can actually subscribe to it and load production courses into it and have people consume those courses from here, but that's obviously a paid service. The free version allows you to load relatively short courses and not many of them, and to basically run them through here. So it's a fully functioning LMS that supports SCORM 1.2, 2004 3rd edition and 4th edition. So it's a great way to test things out without pushing things into your actual LMS. especially if you have to go to a separate organization within your company to get things loaded into your LMS. So at the moment I've got nothing in here. I want to load my new course. So I'm going to go to this big green add content button here, and I'm going to import a SCORM package. So select that top one, and that is going to put me on here and ask me to choose that file on my PC. So I'm going to go to Browse, go to my E drive, CSR Training, Open. And then once I click Import Course, that is going to load my course for me, and it will check that it's formatted correctly, it's a valid SCORM package, etc., etc. So I'll just leave that running and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so that course has now been loaded in. It knows that what I loaded in is a SCORM 2004 4th edition package. I don't see much else about it here, nothing's been done with it. All I'm going to do is I'm going to launch this now and see how it plays. So I'm going to go straight to launch here. And this is now my course in the LMS. It's a very basic view of that. I've got the structure of it down the left-hand side here. And when I start that, it's going to play here. Now, you'll notice that there's completion indicators down the left-hand side and the structure down the right. The structure looks super complicated. It's not really. It's really reflecting what we have. We've got our overall container here, which is the SCORM package around it, if you like. But this CSR training one here, this is effectively the group that I selected to publish. If I go and look at what I've got in Producer in parallel to this, you can see this is my structure. I have CSR training. Below that, I have the commit order process book, which is actually this. And then I've got the overview book and the section 1 book. And then below that, I have my simulation, which has got demo, practice, and concurrent modes selected, and this document here. And those 3 playback modes are listed here. It doesn't show me this document here because it's a PDF and it doesn't natively recognize those things within a structure. I would need to link to that if that needs to be consumed. Same thing with this. This How GATP Works PDF is not listed in here. That's because it's just an external file that happens to be in my structure. If I wanted that to actually appear in my SCORM package, I would need to either link to it or to use a book page template, which will then effectively display this in a book page, and that book page would then be listed in here as well as another consumable part of my course. So what I basically have really, looking at the highlighted hyperlinks, which means that I can launch these things, is I've got 1, 2, 3 books, which is this book, and this book. And then I've got a simulation with 3 modes in it, and I can launch each of those 3 modes independently. So let's look at launching this and what it does. Now, because I have debug mode on, as soon as I launch something, it's going to show me the debug panel. And that's what we're really interested in. I'm going to start with the overall course itself. So I'm going to click on the commit order process, which is my highest level book, and see what that gives us. So that has launched that for us, and here is my debug window. So let me just rearrange my screen so that I can fit everything on here nicely. Okay, so now I have my SCORM Cloud window on one side, and I've got the debugger down the side here. Now the things that we're going to watch out for here are our progress through these. So we're going to look at ultimately this completed mode here, and we're going to look at our progress indicator through here, and we're going to look at the visited parts here. Now you might be wondering, what is all of this that we've got in here? We've got a whole bunch of things listed. What we've got here is really our 3 books which comprise our course. And again, if I open Producer, I can see in here that my high level book of the commit order process has a UID of BO_6FBA. That is this one here, BO6FBA. My overview subbook within that is BO4596. And if I look here, that's exactly what I've got, BO4596. And then my last one, section 1, is 3DE0, which is this one down here. So all this is doing is it's saying okay, within this overall book here, which is the SCO, the shareable content object unit, you've got 3 different books in that. At the moment, it's saying that our progress is at 0.11, which is effectively 11%, because we've looked at one page so far, which is this page here. We're on page 1 of 8, and that's going to give us our 0.11 through there. This is out of 1. 1 would be 100%, so this is effectively 11%. Okay, so that's how that's structured. So I'm going to jump around in our book because I want to show you some certain things within this. Now recall that our main book, the commit order process, has 1, 2, 3 pages in it. Our overview has 1 page and our section 1 has 4 pages. Okay, so remember that as we start to go through this. They all have different numbers of pages. You can see here this says visited 1 of 3. This has visited 0 of 1 and this has visited 0 of 4. And my overall progress is 0.11 at the top. So let me minimize this. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to display only those 3 pages that are in my main book, which is my main index page here. And then if I skip over section 2, section 3, it's going to be these 2. This is the second slide and the third slide within my overall book. So I'm going to go to what you have learned here next. And over here, you can see it now says visited 2 of 3. And my progress here is 0.22 for the overall course. But for this book, it now shows us 0.67, which is 2/3, because I've completed 2/3 of this course. And when I go on to the next slide, which is my last slide in here, this is the 3rd slide in that book. So it now says that within my overall initial book, I visited 3 of 3 pages, which means that I have now completed this book. This book, the commit order process book. I've not completed the overview, I've not completed the section 1. So these 2 here still say false and visited 0 of 1 and 0 of 4. But look up here, overall, for the SCO itself, it says progress is 0.33. So 1/3 of the way through it. That's because I've completed 1 of the 3 objects within that. The objects being the books in this case. All right. So for this SCO, I've actually completed 1 of 3 books, which is 1/3, which is what it's showing me here. Now it's interesting that in total I have 4, 5, 6, 7, I have 8 pages, and I visited 3 of those. But this is still going to give me 1/3 credit because it's doing it at the book level and not at the number of slides level. So that's important. And we'll see that when we go to this one as well. So I'm now going to go back up to the top up here, my standard presentation, and I'm going to go into section 2, into the overview, which only has 1 slide in it. So I go into the overview. This is it. This is all that's in the overview about this course. And now you can see my second book, which is my overview book, has got visited 1 of 1, which means that I've completed it. I've seen all the slides in it. Progress is set to 1 or 100%. And if I go and look at the SCO, it's now showing me that I've completed 2/3 of this because I've completed 2 of the 3 books. The fact that I've only completed 4 of 8 slides, it would be exactly 50%. But it's showing me at 67, again, because it's looking at the book level. Okay, so now I'll just run through the rest of this course. It's going to take me into section 1, which starts at slide 3, and then I'll just run through the rest. And watch these as I do that. It's going to be in this particular book here we're going to jump into, which is currently visited 0 of 4. Watch this and watch this up at the top here, this progress. Bearing in mind that I've already visited these last 2 slides in here. Okay, so I'm on about this course. I'll just flip through these and watch this. Visited 0 of 4 at the moment because I'm still in my overview. Now I'm in section 1. I'm specifically on slide D516, and if I went and looked in Producer again, I'd see that is my first slide within section 1. So I've now started this. Progress is at 0.25 or 25% because I've looked at 1 of the 4 slides in this section. Progress here is now up to 0.75. Okay, so as I go through this, that is slide 1 in section 1, slide 2 in section 1, slide 3 in section 1, My progress is now 0.92 because I've nearly got all the way through here. And then when I go to here, now this is not the end of my presentation. I'm on slide 6, but I've already looked at 7 and 8. I've already got credit for those. So my progress is now at 100%, which means that completed is true. So that's how all of that works. Just important to be able to see what we visited, what slides we're on, and how that progress is calculated all the way through here and bundled up to the SCO level. So here I would absolutely expect that because completed is true, progress is set to 1, and it's 1 for all of these books, that this would absolutely say in the LMS, yes, you have completed this course, okay, or at least this shareable content object, which is my commit order process course. So far, so good. I'm now going to look at my simulation, which is a separate SCO within my SCORM package. Okay, so I'm going to look at this in practice mode because I can control the progress through it. So I'm going to start that. From here, I'll just go into the practice mode for my simulation. Note that all 3 modes are listed here. That means I would have to complete all 3 modes to get credit for completing this. Okay. At the moment, I'm only going to look at 1 mode, which is a practice mode. So I'll load that. It refreshes my debug window. And this is my simulation that I'm in. And it says I visited 0 of 21. Now, this is the first interesting part about this. Okay, I've seen this effect sometimes on books with book pages in them, but it's most pronounced on simulations. And this is where I see a lot of cases of people saying, I've completed this simulation, it's not recording it as complete. And this is all part of it. So it says I've visited 0 of 21. Where's that 21 coming from? Again, I'll go into Producer and I'll open that simulation. And I can see in there that it has 21 steps. So that's exactly what it's referring to here. Number of steps, not number of actions, but number of steps that we have. Okay, so that's what it's counting. So here, why is it saying 0 when I'm on this step? Because I've not performed the action for that step. Okay, so it's basically saying you've done nothing so far. It's on your screen, but you've not interacted with it. This is practice mode, though it works the same way in demonstration. It's only going to give me credit when I've moved off this step onto the next one. So if I do that, and note that this is an explanation bubble, I'll click to continue and progress is at 0.05 or 5%, which is 1/20th. So as I continue through here, and I'm going to go through relatively quickly, don't worry about the content, it's irrelevant. It's this progress at the SCO level I want to see and the visited count. I'm now at step 2 and it says I've visited 1 because it's given me credit for the step that I completed, but not this one yet. Now as I go through these, watch that visited and how it affects the progress. So this is step 2 and I'll just jump through these. Perform that, select the next one. See, it's bumping this visited up. I've got a bunch of actions in here that I'm performing, going through all of this. Enter an order type of OR. Select that explanation here. So it will count the explanations as I go through here, but I've still got to go through here. Progress is 0.38 at this stage. If I click next, it's still left me on 0.38 because the explanation is in the same step as the following action. So again, it's not identifying specific actions or macros within a step, it's counting it at the step level. So let me run all the way through this. Click create here, drop down, select something, click OK, 12 steps through here. These are explanations, another action step here. Search for the item I want to add to this order, click OK. I'm now at 16. I want to order one of these. I'm at 17. That's an explanation. That's an explanation. They were in a step on their own. We saw that in Producer. Now I've got to here. I'm at 18. Click the Save button. I've visited 19, so I'm actually on step 20. And then click the Back button. complete step 20. This is 21. This is my step 21. Again, I'll jump back to producer and my step 21, and I'm looking at practice mode. You've now completed this activity. So that's exactly where we are right here. You've now completed this activity. And I visited 20 of 21. Progress is 0.95%, completed is false. Now you might think, but this is the last step. I've seen this step, therefore I've completed it. The problem that most people hit is the users will just close the browser window down here, or the browser tab. And as soon as they do that, it's basically leaving them at 95% completed because they've not officially moved off this step. You've got to move off this step the correct way, and I did a previous video explaining this. I've got to effectively complete this step, even though it's just a display, an explanation bubble here. I've got to complete this to get credit. So here, progress is at 0.95. I've visited 20 of 21. I need to come into here and click my next button to move off this step onto the next step, which doesn't exist, which will then finish things up, but it will give me credit for having visited step 21. So what I would suggest is you do like I've got here, where I've got the end page popping up, or you have a single button on here and put in your bubble, make sure you click the button below to exit from this course and register your completion. Make sure you use those words, and register your completion, so the user knows, oh, I've got to click this button or I'm incomplete. So watch what these go to as I click next. So I'll click next, 21 of 21. I've now completed it. Progress is at 100%, completed is true. This is my end page. I don't really like using these because it's fairly ugly, but I've left it in here because I wanted you to be able to see these before it closed the browser window for me. So that's what you need to do to get completion registered. And if you're seeing that your completion is not being recorded correctly in the LMS, that's what to check. Make sure that on your last step, you've got that visited here. It's got completed is true before you exit. Because if you don't, that's what's going wrong. So here, I will just close this down. And I've completed that. You saw that it showed me it's completed there, and come back to here. And I've got a score of 50% here. I've not completed everything yet because all I've completed is a course and practice mode. I've not done demo mode. I've not done concurrent mode, which is why I'm only at 50%. If I relaunch this again now, you can see here that I completed this, the commit order process. I completed the practice mode, but I've not completed concurrent. I've not completed demo mode. Therefore, I've not completed the overall course. That's why these are not selected. Okay, so that's why in here, it shows me as 50% complete. So that is a very quick look at some basic debugging of SCORM packages, specifically if you're seeing that completion is not the way you think it should be. Hope you found that useful. If you do, please subscribe and do check out SCORM Cloud. Again, a free service, very nice for debugging content.